You've had a long day. The world has asked much of you, and you've given it. Now the sky has darkened, the noise has softened, and you've made it here, where nothing more is expected. Just this moment, just this breath. Come, sit by the fire. Let the warmth settle into your skin, and the flickering light dance gently across your thoughts. There's no need to rush anymore, no problems to solve. You are safe here. You are allowed to be still. You don't need to carry it all right now. The decisions, the doubts, the weight of everything left undone. Let it slip off your shoulders, just for a while. Let yourself rest. Tonight, you're not alone. There's someone beside you, not in body, but in spirit. A quiet presence, steady, calm, ancient. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who once led armies and governed empires, now sits silently beside the fire, not as a ruler, but as a guide. Not with orders or commands, but with the soft offering of wisdom, shaped by years of watching the world and turning inward. He doesn't need your attention. He's here when you're ready. His voice doesn't rise above the flames. It blends with them, like a whisper woven into the night. Close your eyes if you'd like, or watch the light dance on the walls. There is no right way to be here, no rules, just quiet, just rest. Let the thoughts drift in and out like smoke, and if you're ready, listen. The fire is crackling, the night is long, and Marcus is near. The world presses in with its noise, its demands, its chaos. But Marcus Aurelius quietly reminds us, none of that is truly ours. The clamour outside may rise and fall like waves, but our mind, that inner place of stillness, remains ours to steer. This idea, that we control our own minds, but not external events, lies at the heart of Stoic calm. So much of our discomfort comes from trying to grasp what we were never meant to hold. We want things to be different. We want people to act the way we think they should. We crave outcomes we can't guarantee. But this resistance only leads to tension. Marcus knew that. He lived in a world of wars and betrayals, yet in his private writings, he gently urged himself not to be shaken by what others did, only to be true to his own nature. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." It wasn't just a lofty saying, it was a practice. A reminder whispered again and again in the quiet hours before dawn, in the stillness after conflict. A practice of returning, like breath, to what is truly within our grasp. We do not control whether others misunderstand us. We cannot force someone to love us, or to stay. We can't prevent aging, or illness, or even a sudden storm that changes everything. But we can decide, slowly, gently, how to respond, what to carry, what to let pass through. Imagine a lantern in the middle of a field. The wind blows, the rain comes, the dark gathers around it. But the lantern's light doesn't argue with the weather. It simply shines. That's the mind, according to Marcus. Not meant to conquer the world, but to illuminate from within. There's a softness to this strength. It doesn't mean repressing emotion or pretending nothing matters. It means feeling what arises, but not being ruled by it. The world may insult, betray, or ignore. The mind, however, can remain steady, not cold, but clear, not distant, but discerning. He often reminded himself, things themselves touch not the soul, not in the least degree, nor have they admission to the soul, nor can they turn or move the soul. But the soul turns and moves itself alone. This is where peace begins, not in changing the outer world, but in changing the way we relate to it. You may have felt today that things were spinning out of control, that you were overwhelmed, unseen, pulled in too many directions. But even in those moments, especially in those moments, the door inward remains open. The power to pause, to notice, to say gently, "This is outside of me, but I am still here." And in that pause, clarity returns, a breath that isn't rushed, a thought that doesn't leap to judgment, a feeling that is allowed to be without being clung to or pushed away. Marcus's teachings aren't about suppressing life. They're about flowing with it, like a river that accepts both rock and bend. The world will continue. It will be imperfect and beautiful and unfair and breathtaking. But the mind, tended like a small garden, can stay grounded. It can observe without grabbing. It can accept without collapsing. That's what Marcus cultivated, again and again. A kind of inner hospitality to whatever came, paired with the discipline to act from virtue rather than reaction. There's something freeing in realizing you don't have to manage everything. You don't have to fix the whole world, or even your whole day. You only have to return softly to what's within reach, your own thoughts, your own responses, your own heart. If you are distressed by anything external, he wrote, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. This is not a command to numb yourself. It's an invitation to rethink how much power you give to things that were never yours to control. You are allowed to rest now. Let the world carry on without your constant vigilance. Let the unfinished be unfinished, the imperfect be imperfect. In this space, nothing is required of you but presence. Marcus's wisdom doesn't demand performance. It welcomes honesty. He himself was a man who struggled, who doubted, who often failed to meet his own standards. But he returned to the practice, day after day, like brushing dust from a mirror, not to erase life's messiness, but to see through it with greater calm. And so, he kept reminding himself, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Even obstacles, even pain, can become paths, not by force, but by choosing how we face them, with patience, with kindness, with a quiet refusal to be owned by what lies outside. There is comfort in knowing this. You are not your circumstances. You are not what others think. You are not the fear or the noise or the endless scroll of problems trying to take root in your mind. Beneath all that, you are still. You are steady. You are capable of choosing peace again and again. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Let your breath be soft. Let your mind ease into its own rhythm, no longer pushed or pulled by what you cannot change. The fire may flicker, the night may be long, but the mind can rest. Marcus Aurelius didn't promise easy answers. He offered something better, a quiet path inward, a gentle reminder that strength isn't control, it's clarity, and peace isn't perfection, it's presence. So tonight, perhaps, there is nothing more to do, no problem to solve, no struggle to win. Only the simple truth, the mind is yours, and that is enough. Some things in life arrive quietly, like a change in the weather. Others crash in, unexpected and unwelcome. But whether gentle or jarring, not everything that touches our lives is within our grasp to shape. Marcus Aurelius returned to this truth often. In a world he could not control, filled with loss, betrayal, war, illness, he found peace, not by fighting fate, but by accepting it. He wrote, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. These weren't just comforting words. They were part of a lifelong discipline. To stop resisting what reality had already made real. To accept what you cannot change is not surrender. It's not weakness. It's not giving up on justice or care or effort. It's the simple wisdom of choosing where to place your strength. There are things that cannot be undone, a missed chance, a lost friend, a closed door. There are illnesses we do not cure, mistakes we cannot reverse, words we wish we had never said, or wish we had said when it mattered most. These truths sit heavy sometimes, and yet Marcus did not teach us to deny them, or distract ourselves from them. He taught us to soften around them, to breathe into their weight. Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to, he wrote. Rather, wish that what happens happen as it does, and you will be serene. It's not an easy path, but it is a gentle one. When we stop wrestling with what's already happened, when we stop trying to make reality something it is not, a quiet space opens up inside us. In that space, there is less noise, less anger, less blame. We don't lose our care for the world, but we stop letting it tear us apart. Acceptance doesn't mean agreement. It doesn't mean approval. It means looking at the truth and saying, "This is here, and now I choose how to meet it." Marcus faced the death of children, the disloyalty of those closest to him, the slow unraveling of his own body. But through it all, he turned inward. He tended the flame within, not the storms outside. The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. And in this, he found peace. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. The day is done. The tasks are over. The regrets, if they came, have already arrived. Let them rest now. Let the breath move slowly, the shoulders soften, the heart feel what it needs to feel. There is no need to force anything. Marcus's wisdom reminds us that we are part of nature, not separate from it. The tree bends in the wind. The river moves around the stone. The sun does not argue with the cloud, and so too can we begin to move with what is, instead of against it. Often, what hurts the most is not the event itself, but our refusal to let go. We think, this shouldn't have happened, and perhaps it shouldn't have, but it did, and here we are. The wound doesn't close by being opened again and again. It closes when it is no longer pulled at, when it is allowed to scar over in its own time. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. The mind, if we let it, will return again and again to what cannot be undone, replaying, regretting, resisting. But Marcus teaches us to interrupt that cycle with presence, with breath, with a soft and humble yes to the moment, even if we don't like it, even if we don't yet understand it. He believed that fate and nature move with their own wisdom, that the things we think of as misfortunes may be part of something greater than we can see, that our role is not to demand a different world, but to live well in the one we have. This doesn't mean we become passive. It means we act from peace, not from war with reality. We fix what we can. We speak when it helps. We try, love, forgive, and rebuild. But where we cannot alter the past, where we cannot force a future, we learn to rest. Marcus's strength was quiet. He did not raise his voice against the world. He listened, he learned, and he endured, not because he had no pain, but because he accepted that pain is part of the human path. "Take away your opinion," he wrote, "and you are saved. Who is hindered? Who is restrained? By his own mind." He reminds us that the final freedom is always within. that the world may change or not. Others may understand or not. Life may go our way or not. But the mind can be still. So much peace comes from 3 words. This is happening. Not as a cry of defeat, but as a deep exhale of truth. This is happening, and I am still here. I can still choose how to move, how to think, how to be. There is no need to rehearse every wound or revisit every mistake tonight. There is only this moment, this breath, this small place of calm between all that was and all that may be. Acceptance does not mean we feel nothing. It means we no longer drown in what we feel. It means we can feel sadness and still find rest, feel longing and still be present, feel the ache of memory and still open to joy when it returns. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world of shifting loyalties, endless decisions, and constant impermanence. But he wrote not for power or applause. He wrote to remember what mattered, to stay rooted in what no one could take from him. So tonight, you are allowed to stop fighting the things you cannot fix. You are allowed to rest without solving, to breathe without planning, to lie still without knowing what comes next. There is wisdom in letting go, and there is comfort in knowing you never had to carry it all. The world turns, the night deepens, and in the quiet there is peace. The world often feels tangled, full of noise, demands, contradictions. But underneath all that, Marcus Aurelius believed, there is something steady, something simple, a rhythm that guides everything from the stars in the sky to the breath in your chest. He called it nature, not in the sense of trees or oceans alone, but in the deep order of all things. And to live well, he said, is to live according to that order, to live according to nature and to reason. This idea might sound distant at first, even abstract. But to Marcus, it was gentle and grounding. It meant aligning with what is real, rather than what we wish were real. It meant letting go of frantic striving and learning instead to cooperate with life, to act with understanding, not impulse, with care, not chaos. He saw reason not as cold logic, but as the quiet wisdom that lives in every person, the ability to reflect, to choose, to rise above blind reaction. It's what separates us from the animals, and also what connects us to one another. Each of us, he believed, is a part of a greater whole, a spark within the vast fire of existence. And just like each tree knows how to grow, each wave how to rise and fall, so too does each person have a natural role, to think, to care, to contribute to the common good. When you have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, he once wrote to himself, remember that your nature is to work with others. What were you made for? To lie under warm covers? No, to act, to serve, to fulfill your part. It wasn't a harsh reprimand. It was a reminder that comfort isn't the highest good, and that purpose is found in being useful, in being kind, in being true to your nature. Living according to nature means accepting change. Everything in nature grows, fades, and returns. The seasons do not resist each other. A flower does not mourn the sun as the clouds roll in, and so, too, are we meant to move with the turning of life, not against it. To age, to lose, to begin again, all without bitterness. Living according to reason means pausing before we speak, listening before we judge, remembering that most of what upsets us is not the event, but our story about it. It's easy to lash out. It's easy to chase after every emotion. But Marcus believed that our true nature is gentler than that, more spacious. He wrote, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. Meaning, we don't have to mirror the chaos around us. We can choose to remain steady, even when others are not. You are allowed to return to stillness. Let the tension drain from your chest. Let the need to explain, to prove, to rush, fade. You don't have to meet the world with urgency tonight. Only with presence. Only with breath. Marcus reminded himself that he was not a victim of the world, but a part of it. That the same force that moves the stars also moves through him, and through you. To live according to nature is to trust that you are not separate from the whole, but deeply woven into it. To live according to reason is to trust that even in confusion you carry something steady within. So many of our struggles come from forgetting this, from thinking we are alone, or that we must bend life to our desires. But Marcus turned inward when life grew heavy. He reminded himself that his role was not to control the world, but to respond to it with grace. Don't demand that events happen as you wish, he wrote, but wish that they happen as they do, and your life will flow smoothly. Living this way doesn't mean we stop caring. It means we start caring in the right direction. Instead of trying to shape the world into a mirror of our preferences, we shape ourselves to fit the world as it is, patiently, thoughtfully, without resentment. And when emotions flare, as they always will, reason helps us hold them gently. Anger, sadness, fear, these are natural too. But Marcus would remind himself not to be ruled by them. You are not compelled to have an opinion, he wrote. That is, you can feel, but still choose how to act. You can notice the storm inside and still respond with calm. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You are not here to win every battle. You are not here to chase every thought. You are here to move with life, not against it. Like the tide returning to shore, like the moon cycling through its phases, like the breath that slows as the body rests. Marcus Aurelius didn't try to escape the burdens of his role. He didn't pretend the world was kind when it wasn't, but he found a way to remain kind within it. That's what it means to live according to reason, to be just when others are cruel, to be honest when lies surround you, to be quiet when noise would only add to the confusion. He believed that the mind, when aligned with nature, becomes free. Not free to do whatever it wants, but free to act in harmony with what is good, and fair, and right. That kind of freedom doesn't roar. It whispers. It lives in small moments, in the decision to forgive, in the pause before reacting, in the breath taken before speaking. This freedom is yours, too. Tonight, you don't need to fix everything. You don't need to sort the world into right and wrong, fair and unfair. You can simply rest in the knowledge that your nature is good, that your reason, when you listen to it, will guide you home. The sky outside may be dark, the day behind you may have been tangled or heavy, but in this quiet space, there is something simple and enduring. The rhythm of nature, the clarity of reason, the soft light of your own mind returning to itself. You are part of something vast, and you are exactly where you need to be. Death, to Marcus Aurelius, was not a punishment, nor a thief, nor something to dread. It was simply part of nature. As ordinary and necessary as breathing, as sleeping, as growing old. To fear it, he believed, was to misunderstand the very rhythm of life. He reminded himself often that everything has its season. A leaf does not cling to the branch forever. The sun does not fight the dusk. all things come and go in their time. So why should it be different for us? Why should the end, which comes for all, be treated as a tragedy, rather than a return? Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years, he wrote. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. He did not write this to frighten himself, but to sharpen his attention, to see more clearly, to soften the grasping that so often fills our days. For Marcus, death was not the end of something precious, but the conclusion of something complete, a turning of the page, a gentle fading of the light, not a violent extinguishing. He imagined it as a dissolving into nature, the body returning to the earth, the breath returning to the air, the mind resting, no longer disturbed by thought or pain. And what of the fear, the clenching in the chest, the cold sense of loss? He understood it, he felt it, but he questioned it too. It is not death that a man should fear, he wrote, but never beginning to live. What frightened him more was the idea of wasting the time he had, of being distracted, bitter, or careless, not the idea of death itself. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Tonight, there is nothing to resist, nothing to chase. The day has ended, and in this quiet space, you are allowed to rest, with the thought that everything moves in a circle, and you are part of that circle, not apart from it. Marcus often looked to nature for reassurance. The stars do not fear their fading. The ocean does not mourn each wave that breaks. Even the tiniest creature lives its span and passes on without complaint. And if we are part of the same nature, made of the same elements, why should our passing be met with terror? He believed that death was not to be feared because it could not truly harm us. If death is a state of nothingness, then there is no pain, no memory, no self left to suffer. And if, by some unknown design, there is something beyond, then that too is natural, and nothing natural can be harmful to us. Either way, he reasoned, there is peace. The fear of death, he thought, often comes from clinging too tightly to what is temporary. We confuse our roles, our possessions, our identities for something permanent. But they never were. And when we let go of that illusion, something softer takes its place. Gratitude, presence, a quiet love for what is, without the need to make it last forever. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. There is no need to push death away with worry or denial. It will come when it comes, whether we fear it or not. Marcus chose not to fear it. He saw that life, however long or short, is enough when lived in alignment with nature and reason, and that death, when it arrives, is simply the final task of a life well lived. It's not the darkness that frightens us, he believed, but our refusal to enter it with open hands. But darkness is not always harsh. Sometimes it is quiet. Sometimes it is soft. The same darkness that holds fear also holds sleep and silence and stillness. Death, he thought, might be much the same. He wrote, "Think of the life you've lived until now as over, and, as a dead man, see what's left as a bonus. Live it according to nature." In this way, every day became a gift, every breath a grace, not because they would last forever, but because they wouldn't. And so he lived, not in dread, but in reverence, in attentiveness, in the quiet strength that comes from understanding one's place in the order of things. You are not meant to carry the weight of eternity. Tonight, you are simply here, breathing, resting, held by the same universe that has always carried you, from birth through time and gently onward, whenever that day comes. Marcus Aurelius saw death not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a teacher. It reminded him of what mattered, of how fleeting moments truly are, and how precious they become when we stop trying to stretch them into something more. There is calm in knowing we are not alone in this, that all who came before have walked the same path, that even the greatest minds, the kindest hearts, the bravest souls, all of them in time came to rest. And so will we. But not yet. Not now. For now there is still breath. There is still softness. There is still the night. And in the space between the living and the letting go, there is peace. The world Marcus Aurelius lived in was no less fragile than ours. He saw triumph followed by ruin. He witnessed powerful empires fade, friendships dissolve, lives extinguished without warning. And from these observations, one truth returned to him again and again. Everything is temporary. This wasn't a reason for sadness, not for him. It was a reason to see clearly, to appreciate what is here without clinging, to let go without panic. For Marcus, impermanence was not a flaw in life's design. It was the design. The rising and falling of all things, including ourselves, was part of nature's rhythm. He wrote, "All things fade into the storied past, and in a little while are covered by oblivion. Not in despair, but in quiet acceptance. The faces we love, the voices that shape us, even the thoughts that trouble us in the middle of the night, all will pass. And in that passing there is a kind of peace, a softness, a space to breathe. It's easy to forget this. The world teaches us to grasp, to hold on to what pleases us, to fight against what we fear losing. But Marcus saw the cost of this. When we believe that anything can last forever, we suffer twice. Once when we fear its loss, and again when that loss inevitably comes. He reminded himself that even the longest lives are brief, that the fame we chase, the worries we nurse, the plans we build, all of it dissolves, like morning dew, like footprints on sand. This wasn't meant to make life feel meaningless, but to show how precious each moment really is. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. The laughter you heard today, the conversation you didn't want to end, even the quiet you're settling into now, none of it stays. And that's what makes it beautiful. If every moment lasted forever, nothing would feel alive. What gives each breath meaning is its passing. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Marcus wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten all things, and all things will have forgotten you." Not as a cold warning, but as a kind mirror, reflecting back the futility of stress, the pointlessness of pride, the emptiness of clinging. If we can see through the illusion of permanence, we can move through life with more grace, more humor, more love. Even pain, as sharp as it feels in the moment, is passing. The ache in your chest, the memory that won't stop replaying, the frustration that lingers after a long day, none of it is fixed. All things change. Marcus knew that even grief shifts, even heartbreak softens. What feels unbearable now will one day feel distant, maybe even gentle in its memory. There is comfort in this. Knowing that nothing stays forever means we can meet life more lightly. We can laugh more freely, knowing the joke will end. We can sit with sadness, knowing it won't stay. We can love, knowing we don't need to trap what we love to keep it. He reminded himself that the universe is always in motion, that even the stars are not fixed. They burn, collapse, and begin again. And if the cosmos itself can change, so can we. Our thoughts, our moods, our circumstances, all are in motion. so we don't need to panic when something feels stuck. Even that, in time, will move. Observe how all things are continually being born of change, Marcus said. Teach yourself to see that nature loves nothing so much as to change what is and to make new things like it. In other words, change is not the end of stability. It is the essence of life. And once we learn to trust that, not resist it, we begin to find calm even in the midst of uncertainty. There are times when we wish things would stay exactly as they are. A perfect day, a rare conversation, a feeling of ease. But even then, Marcus would smile gently and remind us, if it stayed, it would lose what made it precious. It is the very fact that everything flows that gives it beauty. Let yourself rest now. Whatever happened today is already behind you. The moments that weighed on you, the ones that lifted you, they have passed. And the thoughts that try to follow you into the night, they, too, will dissolve. Let them come and go without force, like clouds across a quiet sky. Marcus knew he couldn't stop the passage of time. He could only live in harmony with it, not racing ahead, not gripping what was behind, just being here, aware of the impermanence of it all, and therefore more tender with each fleeting moment. He believed that the fear of change fades when we see that we are not separate from it. We too are changing, from breath to breath, from one quiet night to the next, and that change is not erasing us. It's carrying us forward, always part of the great turning. So tonight, let it be enough to know this. Nothing lasts, and that is not a threat. It's a gift. There is nothing to possess, nothing to fix forever. Only this gentle moment, already slipping into the next. And in that softness, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius believed that the most peaceful life is found not in chasing pleasures or avoiding pain, but in simply doing what needs to be done, without bitterness, without fanfare, without complaint. He understood that every person is part of a greater whole, and each of us has a role to play, like a hand is part of a body. That role may change with time, but the guiding principle stays the same. Fulfill your duty with steadiness and grace. To Marcus, duty wasn't a burden, it was a quiet honor. Whether as a father, a leader, a friend, or a citizen, he saw life's tasks as part of the natural order, and the most dignified thing a person could do was to meet those tasks with a calm and willing heart. When you arise in the morning, he wrote, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. And in that spirit, he approached each day not with dread, but with acceptance. It's easy to grumble at responsibilities, to wish the day looked different, to feel frustrated by repetition, or by the weight of obligations that never seem to lift. But Marcus believed that complaint was a kind of inner resistance, a turning away from our nature. We were made to act, to serve, to contribute. When we resist that too long, the tension builds. But when we lean into it, when we simply do what is ours to do, a deep quiet settles in. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. There is a gentleness in routine, in care, in showing up. You may not always feel inspired or appreciated. But Marcus reminded himself that bees don't need praise to make honey. The sun doesn't wait for applause to rise. Nature acts without fuss. And we, being part of nature, are at our best when we do the same. This doesn't mean never resting. It doesn't mean pushing yourself to exhaustion. Marcus often spoke of balance, of not wasting energy on things that don't matter. But when duty calls, he believed we should meet it without resentment. Not because the task is always pleasant, but because doing it well brings peace. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. There is no need to compare your path to someone else's. No need to weigh your efforts against their rewards. Marcus warned against this kind of measuring. Don't waste the rest of your life wondering what others think, he wrote. What matters is doing your part, quietly, consistently, with integrity. He often reminded himself that he couldn't control how others acted. He could only choose how to respond. If someone else was lazy, unjust, or unkind, that was their path. But he would not let their behavior pull him off course. The impediment to action advances action, he said. What stands in the way becomes the way. Even obstacles could become tools. Even hard days could be teachers. When the mind stops complaining, something else takes its place. A kind of stillness, a rhythm, the feeling of doing what's needed without dragging your feet. That's where Marcus found dignity. Not in doing great things, but in doing small things with care, with presence, with humility. You're allowed to rest now. You've carried enough for one day, and you've done more than you give yourself credit for. The mind may insist that you should have done better, faster, more. But Marcus would say that showing up quietly and without complaint is already something rare and noble. He did not seek praise. He did not wait for perfect conditions. He simply acted, not out of ego, but out of harmony with what life had placed in front of him. When he woke each morning, even when he was tired or ill, he reminded himself that his body was made to move and his mind to reason, that life wasn't a luxury, but a calling, to contribute, to care, to do what was right, even when no one noticed. And he knew that complaint, while understandable, only made the burden heavier. He encouraged himself gently, not with pressure, but with purpose. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. That was enough. There's something calming in that. You don't have to be exceptional. You don't need a perfect plan or the right mood. You only need to begin. And when you feel resistance, the wish to avoid, delay, or criticize, you can let it pass like a breeze. It's just another part of the day, not something that needs to rule it. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world full of unrest. He bore enormous responsibility and often little thanks. But he rarely spoke of being overwhelmed. Instead, he returned to the practice of doing his part, fully and quietly, until the day was done. That, to him, was freedom, not from obligation, but from inner struggle. Tonight, you are free to let go of the fight, to stop pushing against the weight of duty and simply allow yourself to move with it, gently and without blame. What's left undone can wait. What's been done is enough. And in that soft space between doing and resting, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius understood that emotions rise like weather, sudden, powerful, sometimes overwhelming. Anger, sadness, fear, excitement, they come uninvited, and often without warning. But while we cannot always stop these emotions from appearing, he believed we do not have to let them steer the course of our lives. The feeling may visit, but the action is still ours to choose. He saw emotions not as enemies, but as guests, temporary, often useful, sometimes misleading. A signal, not a command. To be human, he knew, is to feel deeply. But to live wisely is to step back gently and ask, is this emotion guiding me or ruling me? Marcus reminded himself again and again that clarity comes with stillness. You have power over your mind, not outside events, he wrote. Realize this, and you will find strength. This was not a denial of feeling, but a soft return to reason, a recognition that emotions, unchecked, can cloud our judgment and draw us into unnecessary suffering. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let the mind soften. Let the day's emotions settle without needing to explain them. There is no need to fix what you feel, only to notice it, to sit with it gently, to watch it rise and fall like wind moving through tall grass. Marcus did not expect himself to be unaffected. He was often tired, often frustrated. He lived in a palace filled with noise, war, betrayal. He knew anger intimately, but he also knew that reacting from it rarely helped. Instead, he would pause, breathe, and ask himself, is this reaction worthy of me? Is it aligned with my nature? He believed that our true nature is not to lash out or collapse under feeling. It is to respond with care, with thought, with perspective. When emotions shout, wisdom whispers. And in the quiet, we find space to act from what matters, not from what stings in the moment. He wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength. Not the strength of force, but of steadiness. The kind of strength that stays still in a storm. The kind that listens, even when provoked. The kind that waits for truth to rise through the noise. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. There is no shame in feeling. Emotions visit everyone. What matters is how we meet them. Whether we greet them with curiosity or allow them to drive the wheel. Whether we remember that what we feel is not all we are." Marcus reminded himself not to speak when the heart was too hot, not to decide when fear was loudest, not to act just because the pulse quickened. "When you are offended at any man's fault," he said, "turn to yourself and reflect in what manner you yourself do err." In this way, emotions became teachers, not rulers. He believed that peace begins not by removing emotion, but by not obeying it blindly. Anger might flash, but we can pause before we strike. Sadness might linger, but we don't have to sink with it. Joy might rise high, but we can hold it with open hands. Each emotion, in its own way, passes. You are not what you feel in this moment. You are the space that allows the feeling and the choice that follows it. This is where Marcus placed his trust, in the ability to pause, to reflect, to align the response with who he wanted to be. He would speak to himself softly, almost like a friend. Why let passion take the reins when reason is at your side? Not because emotion was evil, but because it was fleeting. And the wise life, he believed, must be built on what endures. You've carried so much today. Let it rest now. There is nothing urgent in this moment, nothing to fix or explain. You are allowed to be quiet, to let emotion rise and fall without pulling you with it. The world will wait. And in this stillness, you can return to yourself, not the part that reacts, but the part that understands. Marcus Aurelius knew that calm is not something we find. It's something we return to, beneath the waves. He practiced meeting each wave, each emotion, without judgment. And in doing so, he found a depth within himself that wasn't shaken by passing storms. This is your depth too. Beneath the surface of what you feel, there is something steady, something quiet and knowing. You are not lost, even if today felt heavy. You are not weak, even if your heart trembled. You are simply human, learning, softening, returning to your center again and again. And as the day fades, and the breath slows, and the mind quiets, you can rest in this gentle truth. Feelings will come and go, but you are not a wave. You are the sea. Marcus Aurelius lived surrounded by voices, advisors, critics, admirers, enemies. He held one of the highest positions of power in the ancient world, yet his writings were not filled with pride or defensiveness. They were quiet reminders to himself not to be moved too deeply by either praise or blame. He saw both as fleeting, unreliable, and often unrooted in truth. If the crowd cheered, it didn't make him better. If they judged or condemned him, it didn't make him worse. To Marcus, the opinions of others were like the wind, shifting, unpredictable, out of his control. What mattered was not how he was seen, but how he behaved. His concern was not with applause or criticism, but with whether he had acted justly, honestly, and with reason. "Receive without pride," he wrote. "Let go without attachment." He meant it for everything: wealth, fame, recognition, but especially for the opinions of others. Praise can feel warm. It strokes the ego, makes the heart rise for a moment. But if we chase it, we quickly lose ourselves. We start performing, adjusting who we are to win more of it. Marcus knew that path leads to emptiness, because once we rely on the approval of others to feel good, we are never at rest. The silence becomes unbearable, and the criticism, even from a stranger, becomes a wound. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. The opinions that swirled around you today, the compliments, the misunderstandings, the glances, the silences, none of them belong to you. They are not the truth of who you are. They are reflections in shifting water. Let them ripple and fade. Blame, too, can sting. A look of disapproval, a harsh word, being misunderstood or falsely accused. Marcus knew this well. He led during war, during plague, during times of unrest. Not all his decisions were popular, but he reminded himself that blame only hurts when we attach our worth to it. "I do my duty," he told himself. "Other things do not distract me." If his conscience was clear, the rest did not matter. This kind of calm is not indifference in the cold sense. It is not apathy. It is clarity. A soft understanding that external praise and blame are not reliable guides. What one person admires, another condemns. What one age celebrates, another forgets. Trying to please everyone means standing on a floor that is always moving. Marcus chose instead to root himself in what he could control: his values, his choices, his inner posture. "Do not waste what remains of your life in speculating about your neighbors," he wrote. "Be indifferent to what makes no difference." And to him, the passing judgments of others, even when loud, made no lasting difference. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You are not the praise you received. You are not the criticism either. You are something quieter, deeper, more enduring. A breath in the dark, a steady presence beneath the surface of other people's thoughts. Marcus reminded himself that even the most celebrated figures in history were eventually forgotten. The applause fades, the statues crumble, the names blur. And if that is true, then what we do must not be done for recognition, but for its own quiet worth. He practiced this in private. Even his famous writings were not intended for publication. They were notes to himself, gentle nudges to return to the path. He did not need anyone to approve of them. Their purpose was to keep him grounded, in humility, in honesty, in reason. There is a freedom in letting go of other people's opinions. It doesn't mean we stop caring about others. It means we stop being ruled by their shifting moods. We begin to act from our own principles, not from a need to be seen a certain way, and that freedom feels like peace. You've done enough for today. You don't need to seek more approval or replay the things someone said, wondering what they meant. Let it go now. You were never meant to carry every voice. Marcus wrote, "Consider how much more pain is brought on us by the anger and vexation caused by such events than by the events themselves." Often, it is not what people say that hurts most. It's our reaction, our holding on, our belief that their words define us. But you are not a reflection in someone else's mirror. You are not their praise, or their silence, or their blame. You are the one who chooses how to respond. And that choice, made quietly, made in stillness, is the beginning of freedom. So rest now. The world may keep talking, but you don't need to answer. You don't need to fix their stories. You only need to return to your own, the one built not on applause, but on peace, the one that continues long after the clapping stops. For Marcus Aurelius, gratitude was not a mood or a passing feeling. It was a practice, a habit of noticing, a gentle returning to the present moment and recognizing what has been given, rather than what is missing. Even as an emperor, with the weight of the world resting on his shoulders, he reminded himself to appreciate what was already within reach: the breath in his lungs, the warmth of the sun, the constancy of the earth beneath his feet. He would often begin his reflections by naming what he was thankful for, not grand accomplishments, but small things: a kind teacher, a wise mentor, the chance to learn from hardship. Even pain, he believed, could be something to appreciate if it helped him grow. "Don't indulge in dreams of having what you don't have," he wrote. "Instead, think of the blessings you do have, and how much you would long for them if they weren't there." Gratitude, for him, was a way of keeping the mind steady. When life felt overwhelming, when others disappointed him, when the world seemed unfair, he turned inward and asked himself, "What do I still have? What is still good?" The answers were never far. His reason, his ability to choose kindness, the beauty of nature, the peace of doing what is right. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Even now, at the end of this long day, there is still something to be thankful for. A breath, gently moving in and out, a place to lie down, a mind that has carried you step by step through the noise. Gratitude doesn't need to be loud or grand. It begins quietly, by noticing what's already here. Marcus understood that the human mind tends to focus on what is lacking. It's easy to see problems, to compare, to believe peace will come once something changes. But he believed the opposite was often true. Peace begins when we stop waiting for things to be different and begin appreciating what already is. "Take full account of what excellencies you possess," he wrote, "and in gratitude remember how you would crave them if you had them not." He reminded himself that the very things we take for granted are often the most precious, and once we learn to see them again, something softens inside us. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. There is no need to chase what isn't here, no need to replay old worries or grasp for what you feel you lack. In this quiet moment, there is space to feel grateful for something simple, perhaps even something small that went unnoticed before. A kind gesture, a moment of stillness, the way the light moved through the room. It doesn't need to be extraordinary to be enough. Gratitude for Marcus was not a denial of suffering. He faced illness, war, betrayal, and personal loss. But he believed that even in difficulty, we can find something to be thankful for, if only the chance to face the moment with strength. He didn't suggest that pain should be ignored, only that we don't let it erase the good that is still present. He wrote to himself often, not to boast, but to stay awake, to the moments he might otherwise miss. A mind distracted by longing, he believed, cannot see the gifts already in its hands, but a mind anchored in gratitude can withstand hardship with greater grace. You are allowed to rest now. There is no task left tonight but to breathe and remember what was good today, even if the day was difficult, even if you felt lost. Look gently. Was there a moment of quiet, a shared smile, a piece of music, or a pause, or a thought that made you feel less alone? These are the small treasures of living. They do not shout, but they are there, waiting to be noticed. Marcus believed that a grateful mind was a strong mind, not because it ignored reality, but because it embraced it fully. Gratitude brings the mind back to what matters. It reminds us that we are already part of something whole, that we have been given enough to begin again, to act with kindness, to meet the next moment with calm. And so he practiced gratitude, not only in comfort, but in struggle, especially in struggle. It was a way of returning to balance, of remembering that life is not only measured by what goes right, but by how we meet what comes. Tonight, perhaps, there is nothing more to fix or explain, only a simple noticing of what you still have, the quiet of the room, the warmth of your body, the steady rhythm of your breath. These things are not small. They are the foundation of peace. Let them hold you gently. Let your thoughts drift, not to what is missing, but to what is already here, waiting to be appreciated. Let yourself sink into the calm of enough. Marcus Aurelius found strength not in demanding more, but in seeing clearly what was already his. You can, too. In the soft stillness of this night, allow the mind to rest in gratitude. Let it return, like a wave to the shore, again and again, to the simple truth. You are here, and that is already something to be grateful for. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, cruelty, and misunderstanding more times than he ever recorded. As emperor, he was surrounded by people who schemed, people who lied, and people who acted out of fear or self-interest. And yet, again and again, he returned to one simple principle: be kind, even when it's hard. He didn't believe kindness required approval. It didn't mean weakness, nor did it ask us to ignore what's wrong. To Marcus, kindness was strength, a calm refusal to become what hurt you, a quiet decision to remain grounded in what's right, not because others deserve it, but because it reflects who you are. He reminded himself in the early hours of the day. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He didn't say this with resentment, but with clarity. He knew the nature of people, and still, he believed that our role is to respond with patience, not because we're blind to their flaws, but because we recognize our shared humanity. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. It's exhausting to carry the weight of other people's unkindness, to replay their words, to defend yourself in your mind, to harden in response. But Marcus saw that responding with the same energy only draws us further from peace. He believed that our true nature, reasoned, calm, and connected, is never more important than when it's challenged. He reminded himself that the person who acts unjustly is already suffering. No one lashes out from a place of peace. And so, even when hurt, he tried to act not in anger, but in compassion. not because it was easy, but because it was the path that led back to stillness. Kindness, for Marcus, was not a performance. It was not dependent on mood or outcome. It was a practice, one that asked for patience, humility, and strength. And when it was hard, that's when it mattered most, when it cost something, when it asked him to pause, breathe, and remember who he wanted to be. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. There's no need to keep replaying the conversation that left a bruise. No need to harden your heart just because someone else was harsh. Let yourself soften. Let your mind rest in the quiet understanding that others may not always meet you with grace, but you can still offer it. Marcus knew that this doesn't always feel fair. He knew the ache of being misunderstood, of watching someone twist your actions or close their heart. But he believed in acting from principle, not reaction. The best revenge, he wrote, is to be unlike him who performed the injury. And in this, he found freedom. The freedom to be kind, even in pain, to be firm without cruelty, to remain true to himself, even when others strayed from what is good. He didn't mean that we should allow harm or avoid boundaries. Kindness doesn't mean saying yes to everything. But even when we say no, even when we walk away, we can do so with clarity rather than resentment, with calm rather than contempt. And sometimes the hardest kindness is the one we offer in silence, the restraint of not retaliating, the decision not to gossip, the quiet choice to forgive, not because someone earned it, but because we want to stop carrying their mistake on our back. You are allowed to rest now. Let go of the sharpness. Let go of the need to be right, or the need to be seen. Marcus understood that kindness isn't about being liked. It's about being in harmony with yourself, with the part of you that knows what truly matters at the end of the day. Not who won, but who remained gentle. Not who shouted loudest, but who stayed grounded in peace. He looked to nature for guidance. The sun rises for everyone, even those who curse the light. The earth holds us all, even when we stumble. And like nature, he believed we too can keep offering what we are, without waiting for thanks. That is what it means to be strong in a Stoic way, not cold, but consistent, not detached, but inwardly steady. Marcus did not become bitter, even when those around him were cruel. He reminded himself that other people's actions are theirs, his were his own, and that's where peace begins, not in changing others, but in choosing how to meet them. Even now, in the quiet of this night, you can feel it. The relief of not needing to match anyone's harshness. The calm of knowing that kindness isn't weakness, but clarity. The softness of recognizing that someone else's pain does not have to become your burden. You can meet the world tomorrow with the same quiet strength Marcus practiced every day. And when it's hard, when your patience is tested, when someone forgets their own dignity, you can remember his words. Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Not to punish yourself, but to hold yourself to the higher standard, to be who you truly are, even when others are not. Let your heart rest in that quiet strength now. You don't need to carry the weight of anyone's anger. You don't need to mirror anyone's cruelty. In your stillness, there is kindness. In your kindness, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that what is past is not only out of reach, it no longer exists. However vivid the memory, however sharp the regret, the moment itself has gone. What remains is a shadow, living only in the mind. And so he practiced the art of letting go. not as a way of forgetting, but as a way of releasing the grip that memory can sometimes hold. "Forget everything else," he wrote. "Keep hold of this alone, the present moment." He returned to this again and again, reminding himself that the past, no matter how dear or painful, cannot be touched. We can't walk back into it, nor can we change it. But we can stop carrying it forward like a weight we never needed to bear. Regret, he understood, is a form of resistance, a quiet protest against something that can no longer be undone. But the more we resist what already happened, the more tightly we hold it. And in that holding, we lose our connection to what is actually here, the breath, the stillness, the peace waiting beneath the noise. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You are not obligated to carry yesterday into tonight. You are not required to revisit every word you said, or didn't say. The path behind you may have its stumbles, its turns, its missed chances, but it doesn't need your attention now. Let it rest. Marcus believed that nothing good comes from looking backward with bitterness. What matters, he said, is what you do now. Not how you wish you had acted, but how you will act going forward. The past, he believed, is useful only if it helps you better understand the present. If it traps you in regret, it becomes a distraction. Time is a river, he wrote, a violent current of events, glimpsed once and carried away. That river does not flow in reverse. Its power is in the direction it moves, always forward, always now. Trying to swim against it leaves you tired, but floating with it, letting it carry you, brings peace. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever mistakes live in your memory, Marcus would tell you they are already complete. You've learned, you've changed. You are not the person who made them, not entirely. The mind grows, the heart softens, the self moves on, even if the memory tries to stay. He also knew that longing for the past, even the good parts, can become a quiet sorrow, wishing to return to a time when things felt easier, or more certain, or more full. But he gently reminded himself that those moments too have passed, and their beauty lies not in trying to bring them back, but in having lived them fully when they came. He did not pretend it was easy. Some memories cling, some losses echo. But he trained himself not to feed those echoes, not to water the seeds of pain. It is not things themselves that trouble us, he reflected, but our opinions about them. If we can change how we hold the past, we can free ourselves from its weight. So much suffering begins not with the past itself, but with how we carry it, the stories we replay, the words we regret, the moments we wish had turned out differently. But the more we return to them, the more they take from the life we are in now, a life that continues, regardless of what came before. Marcus turned to the present as his anchor. He believed that what is here, right now, is all we truly own. The past cannot be visited. The future cannot be promised. But the present, this breath, this thought, this stillness, is always available. You are allowed to let go. You are allowed to rest without reviewing everything that went wrong. You are allowed to feel peace, even if yesterday was tangled, even if there are things you wish had gone another way. There is nothing to rewrite, only this moment to soften into. He practiced forgiveness too, especially with himself. He understood that clinging to past errors keeps the wound open, that healing begins with a decision to stop returning to what can no longer be changed. That wisdom is not about having done everything right, but about learning to move forward with care. There is something gentle in that, something healing. You are not bound by your past. You are not defined by your worst moment. You are the one who stands here now, choosing peace, choosing to release what no longer serves you. Marcus trusted that the universe continues to unfold as it should, that what has passed, passed for a reason, even if unseen. He didn't waste energy trying to redo the story. He turned the page quietly and met the next chapter with presence. Tonight, you can do the same. Whatever lives in your memory, let it settle like dust on a windowsill. It doesn't need to be swept away, just left undisturbed. It is no longer part of the day you are living. It no longer needs your attention. Return to the breath, to the softness of this moment, to the stillness that Marcus knew could only be found by letting go of what is no longer real. You've come far. Let the past be what it is, complete, and let yourself rest. Marcus Aurelius believed that much of our suffering comes not from the world itself, but from its clutter, the mental noise, the needless complexity, the endless pulling in too many directions. In his quiet reflections, he returned often to one guiding principle: simplify your life. Not by running from responsibility, but by returning to what truly matters and letting the rest fall away. He wrote, "If you seek tranquility, do less." Or more precisely, do what's essential, which brings a double satisfaction: to do less, better. It wasn't about doing nothing. It was about choosing with care. When the mind is overfull, when the day is swollen with distractions, we lose the ability to hear our own thoughts. Marcus knew this, and he shaped his life, even as an emperor, around what he called the work of a human being. To him, that work was simple: to live with honesty, to act with justice, to respond with patience. Everything else, he believed, could be let go. The drama, the showing off, the comparisons, the chasing, these were weights we choose to carry, not necessities of life. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You are allowed to step away from the demands you didn't ask for, from the expectations that never belonged to you. There is no need to be everywhere, do everything, or please everyone. Not tonight, not now. In this moment, you can simply be. Marcus understood how easy it is to complicate life, to chase success, recognition, status, things that multiply anxiety but rarely bring peace. He reminded himself, often gently, that these things fade, that the applause of others grows quiet with time, and that what endures is far simpler: the choices we make, the character we build, the calm we carry. He encouraged himself to strip away the non-essentials, not to live with less for the sake of less, but to make room for stillness, for thought, for depth. A life cluttered with too many aims, he believed, leaves no space for the soul to rest. But a simple life, lived with intention, brings clarity. Is your mind your own? He asked himself. Do you keep it pure? Do you do what needs doing without distraction? These questions weren't meant to scold. They were gentle reminders, a return to center. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let go of the to-do list running circles in your mind. Let go of the small urgencies that kept you rushing all day. What truly mattered likely asked very little of you. A moment of kindness, a task done with care, a word spoken with sincerity. These are the pieces of a well-lived life, and they are often quiet. Marcus did not believe that peace comes from withdrawal, but from presence. You do not need to move to the mountains or leave the world behind. You simply need to learn what to let fall away. He did this in the palace, surrounded by noise, by politics, by pressure. And still, he found time to sit with his thoughts, to ask himself what truly mattered, to return to the simple acts of reason, honesty, and restraint. He understood that many of life's problems are made worse by excess worry, excess opinion, excess ambition. The more we try to manage, the more we carry. But when we pause and ask, is this essential? The mind begins to quiet. Simplifying doesn't mean giving up, it means choosing. Marcus chose to spend his energy on what he could control, his thoughts, his responses, his attitude. Everything else he saw as passing. Not unimportant, but not worth disturbing his peace. And so, when troubles came, as they always did, he didn't meet them with panic. He met them with clarity. He asked himself what part of the problem belonged to him, and what part was simply the nature of life. Often the answer was, do your part and let the rest be. You are allowed to rest now. You don't need to untangle everything before sleep. You don't need to answer every question or reach every goal tonight. You can trust that clarity comes not from doing more, but from needing less, from making space for what is real. Marcus often returned to the metaphor of nature. The olive tree doesn't rush to produce fruit. The sun doesn't overthink how to rise. All things in nature follow their path, directly, simply, without noise. He believed humans could live this way, too, with fewer complications, fewer distractions, fewer imagined needs. There is a calm that comes from simplicity, the calm of knowing you are where you need to be, doing what is in front of you, asking for nothing more than this moment. Marcus sought that calm, not through withdrawal, but through clarity. A life pared down to what matters. So tonight, you can put the rest down. You've done enough. You are enough. There is nothing you need to prove in this quiet space. Let the breath slow. Let the thoughts soften. Let the mind return to its natural rhythm, simple, steady, free. And in that simplicity, let peace return. Marcus Aurelius was deeply aware of time, not as something distant or abstract, but as something incredibly fragile, something you could lose without noticing. He reminded himself often that life is not only short, but uncertain, that each moment passing is a moment we won't get back, and so he urged himself not to waste it. You could leave life right now, he wrote. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Not as a fearful warning, but as a quiet invitation to be present. He didn't believe in rushing or forcing every hour to be filled. But he did believe in awareness, in remembering that what we spend our time on, we spend our life on. To him, wasting time wasn't just about idleness. It was about distraction, filling the day with things that don't matter, letting the mind wander endlessly or getting caught in arguments that go nowhere, worrying about things we can't change, comparing ourselves to others. All of these, he believed, steal life while pretending to fill it. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't have to account for every minute. But you can allow yourself to return to the moment, to step gently out of the spiral of thoughts and rest in the simplicity of what's real. This breath, this stillness, this soft reminder that your time is sacred and you don't need to spend it proving anything. Marcus often asked himself if what he was doing could be considered the work of a human being, a task aligned with reason, with kindness, with justice. If not, he would let it go. Stop whatever you're doing, he told himself. If it isn't kind, necessary or true to who you are. In that clarity, there was calm. He didn't need to fill the day with noise, only with what mattered. Time, he knew, moves quietly. It doesn't announce its passing, but each moment slips away just the same. And so, to live with intention, gently, calmly, with purpose, was the greatest form of respect he could offer to life itself. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. There's no need to grasp for lost hours, or chase after what was left undone. Let the unfinished be unfinished. What mattered most today wasn't how much you did, but whether you lived with care, whether your thoughts were steady, whether your heart was open, whether you paused long enough to notice the sky, the breath, the moment between things. Marcus believed that when we remember how limited our time is, we begin to choose differently. We stop postponing goodness. We stop waiting for the perfect moment. We become less interested in conflict and more interested in peace. Not because we're afraid of dying, but because we've remembered how to live. Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years, he reminded himself. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. In that sentence was his philosophy. Not to rush, not to panic, but to live now. To offer what we can while we're here. To not let another day go by asleep to what matters. He didn't think of time in terms of achievement. He didn't ask himself what he had gained, or how much recognition he'd earned. He asked if he had done his duty, if he had helped where he could, if he had kept his mind clear and his heart calm. Let yourself rest now. There is no pressure in this moment, no need to calculate the value of your day. You're here, breathing, reflecting. You've made space for stillness, and that is already a beautiful use of time. Marcus believed that living fully doesn't require grand gestures. It's in the quiet decisions, in what we say yes to, in what we finally learn to say no to. It's in the gentle return to now, to what is real and honest and within reach. And so he simplified. He let go of excess. He turned inward not to escape, but to stay awake. Because he knew that time is not something we can store up. It is something we are always spending, whether we notice or not. You are spending this moment in peace. There is no better place to be, no more important task than resting in the life you already have. There is wisdom in slowing down, not to waste time, but to reclaim it, to say, this is enough, this breath, this stillness, this night. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask to control time. He only asked to honor it. And through that practice, he learned to live without regret, to meet each morning with purpose, and each evening with calm. Let that calm stay with you now. Let it carry you into rest. Your time is yours, and you've spent it wisely. Marcus Aurelius often returned to the thought that he was not alone, not just in the company of other people, but in the deeper sense of being part of something larger, something connected. He believed that each person is a thread in the vast fabric of nature, woven into place not by chance, but by purpose. What brings no benefit to the hive, he reminded himself, brings no benefit to the bee. To Marcus, this was not a loss of identity. It was a relief. He did not have to carry the whole world on his back. He only had to fulfill his role in it, with care and clarity. Just as a leaf belongs to the tree, and the tree belongs to the forest, so does each human life belong to a wider design, something unseen, but always present. Something you don't have to fully understand in order to trust. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You aren't separate from the world. You are not a mistake. You are not out of place. You are part of a rhythm older than you, deeper than any trouble you carry. There is no need to force your belonging. You already belong. Marcus saw this clearly. When people angered him or disappointed him, when the weight of duty pressed heavily on his shoulders, he reminded himself that even the difficulties were part of the greater whole, that the people who challenged him were also fellow citizens of the world, shaped by the same forces, drawn by the same fate. And so he softened, not because they were always right, but because he remembered they, too, were part of nature. He believed that everything in the universe had its place, even pain, even loss, even delay, not in the way we always want or expect, but in a pattern far beyond our view. And in that trust, he found peace. He stopped asking why things happened exactly as they did. He focused instead on what part he could play, what kindness he could offer, what duty he could fulfill, what harm he could avoid. All things are interwoven, he wrote, and the bond is sacred. Nothing is unrelated. This gave him patience when events turned against him. It gave him humility when fortune favored him. And it gave him strength because he no longer felt alone in his efforts. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let go of the need to carry it all yourself. Let go of the idea that your struggles mean you are failing. Even when things feel out of place, even when others do not understand you, you are still a part of the whole. You still belong to this life. Marcus did not believe in isolation. He reminded himself that humans are made for one another, that we are not random sparks in the dark, but lights connected by invisible lines of duty, compassion, and shared experience. Even when others act selfishly, even when the world feels fragmented, he returned to this idea. We are meant to help, not harm, to work with, not against. He found that the more he aligned himself with this truth, the quieter his mind became. His personal wants softened, his anger lessened, his fears, though still present, lost their power to paralyze him. He knew he couldn't control everything, but he could move in harmony with what was unfolding. Like a bird riding the wind, or a river following its path, he didn't need to force every outcome. He only needed to remain centered, truthful, and kind within his place. And through this, life became simpler, less heavy, less frantic, not always easier, but more meaningful. Let yourself rest now. There is no need to solve every question before sleep. There is no need to make perfect sense of your life tonight. You are not separate from the world around you. You are not forgotten. You are not lost. You are part of something wide and quiet and enduring. Marcus believed that the soul finds its rest not in isolation, but in returning to its nature. And the nature of a human being, he said, is to act with reason, with fairness, and with a sense of shared belonging. The more we live in this way, the more we find that much of our suffering begins to dissolve, not by escaping it, but by remembering we're not facing it alone. When we feel small or overwhelmed, it's easy to forget this. But Marcus would gently remind himself, you are not the center of the universe, but you are a part of it, a necessary part, a note in a wider song. And in that perspective, the burdens shrink. Even the stars above him, he believed, played their role. Even the wind through the trees. Everything has its time. Everything serves. And so do you. Simply by being here. Simply by showing up with honesty and care. You've done enough for today. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts soften. Let yourself return. Not to answers, but to presence. You are already part of the whole, and that is enough. There is no need to grasp, no need to prove. You were never apart, you were never outside. You are here, and you are home. Marcus Aurelius lived in a world where betrayal was common, where power could corrupt, and where cruelty often went unpunished. And yet, in the quiet moments of reflection, he returned again and again to one simple truth. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. It was not about winning. It was about staying true to himself. Even when others acted with dishonor, he believed that responding with the same energy only deepened the damage. To Marcus, the worst thing someone could do to you wasn't to insult or deceive you. It was to change your character, to pull you away from your values, to tempt you into becoming the very thing you despise. And so, he practiced restraint, not out of weakness, but out of principle. The harm done by others, he believed, does not justify abandoning your own sense of right. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't need to carry someone else's cruelty into your heart. You don't have to keep the words they said echoing in your mind. You are not obligated to match the harm that was done to you. There is a gentler path, one that leaves your soul intact. Marcus reminded himself that revenge often feels like justice in disguise. But in truth, it rarely brings peace. It entangles you in the same bitterness you wish to escape. The moment you act out of spite, you've already given your enemy more than they deserve. Your mind, your time, your inner calm. He believed it was far better to respond with clarity, to remain grounded, and to quietly continue living with dignity. Don't return to them what they gave you, he wrote. Return to yourself. In that single idea, he found strength. Not the kind that pushes or punishes, but the kind that refuses to be shaped by someone else's mistakes. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever happened, happened. Whatever was said or done, it's already in the past. But who you are, who you continue to be, that's still in your hands. No one can take that from you unless you give it away. Marcus chose not to. He knew there was more courage in forgiveness than retaliation, more wisdom in restraint than in shouting back. He didn't say you had to pretend it didn't hurt. He didn't ask himself to forget. But he saw that anger, when left unchecked, turns inward. It hardens the heart, narrows the mind, and leaves little room for joy. And so he learned to breathe through it, to let the feeling rise, and then pass. Not because he was passive, but because he knew where true power lives. To let go of the need to get even is not to lose. It is to free yourself. The person who wronged you might never understand what they did. They may never feel regret, never say sorry, never change. But you can choose not to carry them with you. You can set them down. You can move forward lighter, freer, untouched at your core. Let yourself rest now. You are not what others have done to you. You are not the anger that briefly flared, or the pain that lingered longer than it should have. You are the one who remained, the one who endured, the one who can still act with kindness, even when kindness is hard. Marcus believed that virtue, not vengeance, is what lasts, that a life lived in integrity needs no defense, and that there is quiet power in simply refusing to mirror the darkness around you. He knew that each time you act from patience instead of fury, from understanding instead of spite, you reclaim your peace. And peace is what he sought. Not comfort, not popularity, but peace born from living in harmony with what is right. He didn't need to prove himself to anyone. He didn't need to show that he could hit back harder. He trusted that character speaks louder than revenge, and that time, truth, and stillness will reveal what is real. Even now, as your thoughts begin to slow, as your breath settles and the day begins to dissolve, you can feel that truth. You are still you. No matter what they said, no matter how they acted, you've kept something unbroken. You've stayed near the quiet center that Marcus returned to so often, and that is enough. You don't need to win an argument that's already over. You don't need to fix a heart that doesn't want to listen. You only need to stay rooted in your own. He knew that when we choose to rise above pettiness, we don't become less. We become more. More present, more clear, more free. And in that freedom is a kind of justice no retaliation could ever bring. Let the weight slip from your shoulders now. Let the story soften. You don't need to be like them. You never did. You've already chosen something higher, something kinder, something truer. And in that choice, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius understood that many of life's frustrations are born not from what we lack, but from what we believe we must have. The more we crave, the more we suffer. And so he trained himself to want less, not out of denial, but out of freedom. He saw clearly that peace doesn't come from satisfying every desire, but from softening the grip of desire itself. He reminded himself often that luxury, wealth, admiration, none of these bring lasting happiness. They rise like waves and fall just as quickly. And chasing after them, day after day, leaves the mind restless, always reaching, never still. Very little is needed to live a happy life, he wrote. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. To want less is not to become cold or empty. It's to return to what truly matters. A warm conversation, a quiet morning, a clear conscience. These are not costly. They are available to anyone who's learned how to notice them. Marcus found deep comfort in simplicity, even as emperor of a vast empire. He knew that a calm mind is worth more than any throne. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't have to chase more tonight. You don't need to grasp at what's missing or fill your thoughts with what hasn't been gained. Let it go. You already have what you need to feel the softness of this moment. A breath, a pause, a small place to rest your mind. Marcus often looked to nature for guidance. The tree doesn't ask for gold to grow. The stream doesn't need applause to flow. Everything in nature fulfills its purpose by being exactly what it is, no more, no less. He believed we could live the same way if we remembered how little it takes to be truly well. Desire, he knew, tends to multiply itself. One wish leads to another. One gain fuels the hunger for the next. But if we can pause and ask, do I really need this? We create space. And in that space, something shifts. We begin to feel light again, grounded again, content not in having, but in being. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let your mind rest from wanting. Let it loosen its grip on the next thing, the next solution, the next imagined version of life. Marcus practiced this each day, stepping back from his own cravings, asking himself whether what he sought was necessary or merely habitual. He understood that the deepest joy often comes from removing, not adding, from clearing the mental clutter and returning to the few things that truly matter: kindness, clarity, honesty, and stillness. These are never out of reach. They don't depend on wealth or recognition or control. Ask yourself, he wrote, is this essential? If not, let it go. Not with judgment, but with gentleness. He didn't scold himself for wanting. He simply learned to notice the feeling, to see it for what it was, and to return to what was enough. And often, enough was very little. You are allowed to feel full, even in quiet, even with less, even when things feel unfinished. The mind will always try to invent more needs. That is its habit. But you don't have to obey it. You can smile at the desire and then return to the stillness underneath. Marcus found that wanting less didn't make him less engaged with the world. It made him more present in it. He could listen more clearly, speak more truthfully, act with more care, because his heart wasn't tangled in endless wanting. He was free to be here. Let yourself rest now. There is no more to chase tonight. The day is done. Whatever you didn't reach can wait. Whatever didn't come was never needed. Breathe into the calm that comes when you stop measuring. Stop comparing. Stop striving. Train yourself gently as Marcus did. Each day, a little less attachment. Each evening, a little more stillness. He knew that the fewer things he needed, the more power he had over his own life. No one could take away his peace, because it wasn't tied to anything they controlled. So he let go, slowly, of what wasn't necessary. The praise, the possessions, the endless striving, and what remained was enough. You are enough, too. You don't need more to be complete. Not right now. Not in this soft moment, where even silence is full. Let the thoughts fall away. Let the breath return to its quiet rhythm. Let your heart feel how light it is when it's not chasing. And in that stillness, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius believed that there is a quiet wisdom at the heart of the universe, a natural order, unfolding moment by moment, with more purpose than we can always see. And when things felt uncertain, or unfair, or painful, he returned to one gentle thought. Everything happens as it should. He did not mean that everything would feel good, or look perfect. He meant that what happens is part of a larger whole, a chain of events stretching far beyond what the eye can follow. Like a leaf falling from a tree, or a wave breaking on the shore, each moment is part of something vast, and nothing arrives by mistake. Marcus reminded himself that life is not random, even when it feels chaotic. The world turns, seasons shift, people come and go, and all of it, even the things we resist, belongs. Whatever happens to you, he wrote, was prepared for you from the beginning of time, not as punishment, not as reward, but as part of the natural unfolding of the world. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let go of the story that things should have been different. Let the weight of what-ifs and why-nows dissolve for a while. There is no need to rewrite what has already happened. It came, it passed, and it brought you here. Marcus trusted that if something entered his path, whether joy or hardship, it had a place there. And he knew that resistance only deepened the pain. Acceptance, he found, brought stillness. Not because he agreed with everything, but because he chose to stop fighting what already was. This was not surrender. It was alignment, like a boat turning with the current instead of against it, like the mind stepping out of the storm and back into its center. He learned to welcome each moment, not because it was easy, but because it was real. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. There is peace in understanding that life does not owe us perfect answers. Sometimes all we get is a breath, a quiet, a chance to begin again. And that is enough. Marcus reminded himself that the universe is wiser than he is, that its timing is not always his, but its flow is trustworthy. Everything suits me that suits your designs, O universe, he wrote. "Nothing is too early or too late for me, if it is in your time." He didn't say this in blind faith. He said it with clarity, because he had seen how often what once seemed wrong later revealed itself to be exactly what was needed. Even sorrow, he learned, has a place. Even endings carry meaning. And sometimes the delays and detours are not distractions, but part of the path itself. He began to let go of the idea that he must control the direction. He learned instead to walk with more openness, more trust, more calm. You are allowed to rest now. You don't have to solve everything tonight. You don't need to make sense of every twist in your story. You've come far, even when you didn't understand the map, even when the road felt uneven, even when nothing looked like you expected it to. Marcus believed that we are not separate from the world, but deeply woven into it, and that means the same wisdom that guides the stars also guides you. The same breath that moves the wind moves through you, and if you can let go of the demand to know everything, you begin to feel the quiet rhythm that holds it all together. He did not expect the world to explain itself. He did not expect it to protect him from loss or pain. He simply chose to live in harmony with what came, to meet it fully without bitterness, and to ask, "What can I do with this?" That question, more than any answer, brought him peace. So when life brought him trials, he met them with steadiness. When it brought beauty, he received it with humility. And through it all, he remained centered, not because he always understood, but because he trusted that all things move as they must. Let your breath slow. Let your thoughts ease. You don't have to grip this day any longer. Whatever happened, happened. Whatever didn't, wasn't meant to. And whatever tomorrow brings, you'll meet it as Marcus did, with an open mind, a steady heart, and the quiet strength to say yes to what is. There is no need to force clarity. It will come when it's ready. And in the meantime, you are safe to rest in the arms of the present. Nothing is out of place, not in this moment, not in this breath, not in this quiet unfolding of life. Everything happens as it should, and you are already exactly where you need to be. Marcus Aurelius believed that peace lives in only one place, the present moment, not in the memories we carry, not in the futures we imagine, but in this breath, this step, this exact point in time. And he reminded himself, again and again, that to leave the present is to leave life itself. Do not let your reflection on the whole of your life oppress you, he wrote. Do not dwell on all the troubles of the future. Rather, ask yourself with regard to every present difficulty, why should I be upset by this if I can endure it now? For Marcus, the now was not just a slice of time. It was the only time that ever truly existed. The past was already written. Nothing could be changed there. And the future was always uncertain, shaped not by fear or hope, but by what was chosen now. And so he brought himself back, gently, again and again, to the simple reality in front of him, the task at hand, the person before him, the next breath. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't need to replay what happened earlier. You don't need to rush ahead into what might happen tomorrow. This moment, here with you now, is all that asks for your presence. There is nothing to fix, nothing to chase. Just rest. Marcus knew that the mind loves to wander. It clings to past mistakes and builds endless stories about what could go wrong. But he learned to treat those thoughts like clouds, appearing, moving, passing. He didn't fight them. He simply noticed them and returned to now. There's freedom in that return, a kind of lightness, because the present moment rarely demands more than your attention, and in giving it, you begin to notice that most of your strength is already here, most of your peace is already here, most of your life is already here. He practiced this not as an escape from responsibility, but as a form of deep engagement. When he wrote with full attention. When he walked, he noticed the ground beneath his feet. When he ruled, he focused on the single task in front of him, not the thousands waiting after it. Confine yourself to the present, he told himself. If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. He found that by focusing on now, even great burdens became manageable. Even discomfort lost its edge. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Whatever came before this moment can rest. Whatever waits beyond it can wait a little longer. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not meant to be anywhere else. Everything you need right now is already within you. Marcus reminded himself that the present moment is quiet, even when the world is loud. And when he stopped chasing, stopped resisting, stopped rehearsing, he found himself more alive, more connected to the part of him that doesn't need achievement or permission to feel whole. He often wrote not to teach others, but to remind himself. And perhaps his greatest reminder was this: you can begin again in every moment, no matter how distracted you were, no matter how tangled your thoughts became. Every breath is a return. Let yourself rest now. Let this breath be enough. Let this stillness be enough. The world doesn't need your worry tonight. The mind can soften, the muscles can loosen. You've done enough for today. You are enough, exactly as you are, exactly where you are. Marcus believed that the present was not something to master. It was something to meet with gentle awareness. Like a friend you sit beside in silence, like a river you watch without needing to control. And the more he lived in that space, the less he needed from the world. He didn't need things to go a certain way. He didn't need people to behave a certain way. He only needed to meet the moment with clarity, with calm, with care. So now, with the day behind you and the night stretched out ahead, you can let go of the rush. Let go of the endless task of fixing or reaching or proving. You've arrived not at the end, but at the place where life always begins again. This moment, this breath, this gentle return to what is real. You are here, and that is enough. Marcus Aurelius held the most powerful position in the known world, and yet he never allowed himself to forget that he was just a man, temporary, fallible, and part of something far greater than himself. Each day he reminded himself that fame fades, strength weakens, praise passes, and that in the end we all return to the same earth. His power did not blind him. Instead, it humbled him, and he wrote again and again about the need to stay grounded. Don't waste what remains of your life, he said, worrying about what others say, think, or do, unless it is in line with your duties. It distracts you from keeping your mind on your own work. For Marcus, humility was not about thinking less of yourself. It was about thinking more clearly. To know your place in the order of things, to act without vanity, to serve without seeking applause. He believed that every person, no matter their role, was part of the same natural cycle, born, living, and eventually passing on. The titles we carry, the possessions we gather, the approval we seek, none of it changes the truth of who we are. And so, he reminded himself to let go of pride, not because he was unworthy, but because pride is heavy. It clouds the mind. It stirs unnecessary comparison. It pulls us away from peace. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't need to impress anyone here. You don't need to hold on to roles or reputations. Underneath it all, you are simply human, a thinking, breathing, feeling being, made to live, to care, and then, in time, to return to the same stillness as everyone else. Marcus often reflected on the fact that even the names carved into marble would one day be forgotten, that the voices of even the most famous people would fade from memory. And if that was true, then what point was there in arrogance? Why cling to importance when time washes everything clean? Keep before your eyes the end of all things, he wrote, including yourself. Not as a grim thought, but as a softening one, a way to remind himself to act without ego, to be gentle in success, modest in judgment, and slow to assume he knew more than anyone else. Humility, for Marcus, was not passive. It was clear-eyed. It was a quiet strength that didn't need to be seen. He knew that when you're truly confident, you don't need to dominate. You don't need to prove. You simply do what's right, without decoration. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let go of the pressure to be special, or above, or better. You were never asked to be those things. You were only asked to be true, to live simply, to think clearly, to act kindly even when no one is watching. That is enough. Marcus found peace in remembering that no one escapes the laws of nature. Not emperors, not poets, not warriors or philosophers. All of us are passing through. And in that truth, there is a beautiful equality. There is no need to compare, no need to rise above anyone. We're all walking the same path. When he was praised, he thanked the moment, and then let it go. When he was criticized, he paused, reflected, and let that go too. Neither flattery nor blame could move him far from his center, because his sense of self didn't depend on them. He didn't mistake status for worth. He didn't mistake fortune for character. Receive without pride, he said, and let go without attachment. That was the heart of it. To welcome what comes without letting it define you. To walk through praise and failure with the same quiet grace. To remember that everything changes, and that nothing external truly belongs to you. Let yourself rest now. There's nothing left to prove tonight, no role to play, no need to be strong or clever or admired. You're simply here, and that is enough. Let the breath carry you back to stillness. Let the thoughts grow gentle. You don't have to be anything more than you already are. Marcus found that humility opened the door to compassion. When you stop measuring yourself, you stop measuring others. You become softer, more curious, more patient. The ego steps back, and what remains is calm, presence, a deeper sense of connection. You are not less for being humble. You are freer. He did not try to make his name great. He tried to make his life good. And in doing so, he found the kind of dignity that no title can give. The dignity of living in harmony with nature, with truth, and with the quiet understanding that we are all passing through together. So rest now, without pride, without worry, without anything to carry into tomorrow. You are enough, exactly as you are, not because of what you've done, but because you've remembered how to simply be. And in that remembering, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius believed that every thought, every action, should come from a place of purpose, not rushed, not careless, but chosen, gently and mindfully. He often reminded himself that life is short, and to waste it on distraction or aimless busyness is to forget what we're here to do. He saw the mind as a tool to be used wisely, not scattered in every direction, and the body as something meant to serve reason, not be led by impulse. Each morning, he asked himself not just what needed to be done, but why. At every hour, he wrote, give your full attention to the task in front of you with dignity, with kindness, with freedom, and with justice. That was his standard, not success in the eyes of others, but alignment with what felt true and necessary. He did not seek perfection, he simply practiced presence. And that presence began in thought. To him, a good action couldn't come from a cluttered or reactive mind. So he returned, again and again, to clarity, to asking whether what he was doing matched who he wanted to be. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't need to rush to the next thing. You don't need to react to every feeling, every passing thought. This moment can be quiet. It can be simple. It can be enough. Let your mind soften and settle. There is stillness here. Marcus knew that the world would always offer 1,000 paths, 1,000 distractions. But he believed that inner peace comes not from trying to walk them all, but from choosing one, and walking it with intention. When he worked, he focused. When he spoke, he measured his words. When he acted, he asked whether his action was fair, necessary, and done with care. If something doesn't serve a clear purpose, he told himself, let it go. He wasn't trying to control every moment. He was trying to stop wasting them. He knew that even small actions, when done with attention, carried meaning. And that thoughtless repetition, the drifting through the day, slowly dulled the mind and heart. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let go of the pressure to do everything. Let go of the tension that says you must always be moving, always be achieving. You are allowed to pause, to breathe, to return to what matters, to choose calmly and clearly what comes next. Marcus did not live with a to-do list in his head. He lived by a deeper question. Is this in line with nature? Is this in line with my role as a human being? And for him, that meant reason, kindness, and responsibility. Not out of guilt, but out of quiet duty, the kind that doesn't seek attention, only integrity. When he found himself drifting, lost in thought or irritation, he called himself back, not harshly, but firmly. He believed the mind should not be wasted on regret, or on chasing after what cannot be controlled. Instead, he guided it gently to what was within reach, the present task, the present thought, the present opportunity to do good. Let yourself rest now. Let your thoughts fall into their natural rhythm. Let the planning, the second guessing, the inner commentary all grow still. You don't need to decide anything tonight. You've done enough. And what truly matters will still be there in the morning, waiting quietly for you to meet it with clarity. Marcus understood that most of life's anxiety doesn't come from what we do, but from doing it without direction, from rushing without knowing why, from speaking without thinking, from acting without reflection. And so he slowed down, not in speed, but in spirit. Even when the world around him moved fast, he moved with intention. To think with purpose, for him, was to know your values. And to act with purpose was to express those values in the world. Not to impress others, not to win anything, but to live well from the inside out. He believed that if your mind and your actions were aligned, peace would follow, quietly, naturally, You don't need to be perfect. You only need to be sincere. And in the stillness of this night, you can return to yourself, not as a task, but as a resting place. You've done what you could today. Let that be enough. Let the mind ease. Let the heart soften. You are already on your way. Each quiet choice, each moment of presence, each gentle intention, they all matter, even the smallest ones. So rest now, not with urgency, but with purpose. And in that quiet purpose, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius lived much of his life surrounded by noise. The constant movement of armies, the voices of senators, the responsibilities of ruling an empire. And yet, in the midst of it all, he came to value silence, not as absence, but as presence. He understood that true strength often speaks most clearly through quiet, and that stillness, not sound, is what brings the mind back to itself. He often reminded himself that not everything needs to be said, that thoughts, when held gently in silence, sometimes settle in ways they never could if rushed into words. The more we say, he believed, the less we remember to listen. And in that listening, to others, to nature, to the quiet hum of our own breath, there is peace. Marcus saw silence not as withdrawal, but as clarity. In stillness, he could ask himself what truly mattered. In stillness, he could respond instead of react. He knew that much of what we speak is driven by ego, by fear, by a need to be seen or to control. But silence softens all of that. It makes space. It allows intention to rise. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't have to say anything tonight. You don't have to explain or defend or be understood. Let yourself drift beneath the surface of words. Let yourself rest in the quiet. The part of you that doesn't need to speak knows how to be here. Marcus practiced restraint, not because he feared conflict, but because he trusted that wisdom often lives in silence. When others were angry or impatient, he chose calm. When words flew fast and sharp, he waited. And when he did speak, it was with care. He wanted his words to carry weight, and so he gave them space. He wrote to himself in silence. He watched his thoughts in silence. He made decisions not in haste, but in the still moments when the mind becomes clear. The best answer to anger, he wrote, is silence. Not because it avoids truth, but because it refuses to join the storm. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let go of the pressure to respond to everything. Let go of the noise others brought into your day. You are not responsible for every conversation, every misunderstanding, every argument. You are allowed to leave things unsaid. You are allowed to rest. Marcus knew that silence could be a form of compassion, that to listen without interrupting, to witness without judgment, is its own kind of strength, and that sometimes silence says more than any sentence could. He also knew that silence heals, that in the quiet, the mind slows down, the heart softens, the body returns to a natural rhythm. He believed that the soul is not found in noise or performance, but in still presence, in simply being without the need to announce. Let yourself rest now. There is nothing more to explain. You're enough, even in silence, especially in silence. The breath moves gently, the day releases its grip, and all that remains is this quiet space where your thoughts can settle like dust, slowly and without force. Marcus trusted that silence did not mean weakness. It meant balance. When he stayed quiet, he did so out of discipline, not avoidance. He did not fear silence. He welcomed it because it made room for clarity, for patience, for truth to rise slowly, without pressure. He believed that in moments of stillness, the mind reveals what it truly holds. Beneath the noise, beneath the emotion, beneath the surface thoughts, there is always something deeper waiting to be heard. But it speaks only when we're quiet enough to listen. You are allowed to be still. Not everything needs to be processed right now. Not every thought needs a conclusion. The silence you feel is not emptiness. It's space. A space where you can rest without doing, without speaking, without striving. Marcus often asked himself whether his words were necessary, whether they would help, or whether silence was wiser. And more often than not, he chose the latter. Not because he lacked the answer, but because he trusted the value of patience. He knew that rushing to speak often leads us away from peace. So now, with the day behind you, with the night surrounding you like a gentle curtain, you can stop reaching. You can let your thoughts loosen their grip. You can let your mind sink into the deep, quiet water of this moment. Let the stillness wrap around you like warmth. There is nothing to prove here, no one to convince. You are already whole. You are already home. And in the silence, there is peace. Marcus Aurelius believed that within each person is a quiet compass, a natural sense of reason, and a conscience that knows the shape of what is right. These were, to him, the most valuable tools a person could possess. Not strength, not wealth, not praise, but a clear mind and a heart that seeks to act justly. He returned to this idea in his writings again and again. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. He trusted that reason wasn't something we had to force. It was already there, steady beneath the noise. And conscience, too, wasn't something taught. It was remembered when the distractions of pride, fear, and desire were stripped away. He believed that peace comes not from knowing everything, but from honoring this inner voice that quietly says, "This is the way." Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You don't need to chase every opinion. You don't need to adopt every idea that's placed in front of you. The still clear part of you already knows more than the noise suggests. And it's enough to return to that, to listen, to trust the sense of rightness that doesn't shout. Marcus often reminded himself that people will act without reason. They will be angry, greedy, careless, confused. But that didn't mean he had to join them. He believed it was a mistake to let someone else's behavior define his own. The best revenge, he wrote, is not to be like your enemy. And the way to avoid becoming like them was to stay rooted in what he knew was just and true, not because others approved, but because his conscience required it. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Let go of the need to explain yourself to everyone. Let go of the pressure to be understood. If you've acted with honesty and thoughtfulness, that is enough. You've already done the difficult, noble thing. You've listened to what matters most. For Marcus, reason was more than logic. It was a way of walking through the world with clarity. He used it to soften his emotions, to guide his decisions, to untangle his thoughts when they grew too loud or too fast. And when he faced hardship, and he faced many, he asked, not, "How do I escape this?" but, "How should I meet this while remaining true to myself?" He didn't expect perfection from himself. He expected effort. He expected attention. He expected himself to return, again and again, to the path of integrity, even when he had strayed. That's what conscience is for, not to punish us, but to gently call us back when we've forgotten who we are. let yourself rest now. You don't need to have all the answers tonight. You don't need to correct every misstep right now. If your intention has been clear, if your thoughts have been sincere, then you are already living in a way that reflects what Marcus valued most. The mind can quiet, the heart can settle. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the colour of its thoughts." And so he tried to keep his thoughts simple, kind, and just. Not because it was easy, but because it was the only way to live without regret. He knew the world could be chaotic, but he also knew that a person with a calm mind and a clear conscience could remain unshaken, like a steady flame in a dark room. You are allowed to begin again each day. Marcus believed that every moment is a chance to return to yourself. You don't need a perfect history. You don't need to fix everything before you can rest. You only need to remain loyal to the voice within you that knows how to act with care, how to speak with honesty, how to live without guilt. This voice is not loud. It's quiet. It doesn't argue. It waits. And when you're ready, it offers its wisdom. Not as a demand, but as a simple truth. You already know what is right. You just have to stay close to it. So tonight, as the day fades and the mind softens, you can feel that stillness inside you. It does not need permission. It does not need applause. It is steady. It is kind. It is yours. And in that calm, quiet place, there is peace. Do not fear pain. Marcus Aurelius did not deny that pain exists. He felt it in his bones, in his breath, in his responsibilities. He knew what it meant to suffer, physically, emotionally, spiritually. But he believed there was a truth deeper than discomfort. Pain, he said, is not evil. It is merely an experience, temporary, bearable, and most importantly, separate from the mind's freedom. Pain, to Marcus, was like weather. Some days it came in harsh winds. Other days it passed like a brief storm. But no storm, no matter how loud, could take away the stillness inside, unless the mind chose to surrender it. If you are distressed by anything external, he wrote, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. That power, he believed, lies in perception. Pain might visit the body, but whether it nests in the soul, that is a choice. He saw his own discomfort as a test, not a punishment. Not something sent to break him, but something that invited him to practice steadiness. A moment where the soul could say, yes, this hurts, but no, it does not own me. You are not what you feel. You can witness the sensation of pain without becoming it. You can let it rise and fall like a wave. It might press against you, but it does not define you. And when you realize that, you create space. Space to breathe. Space to endure with dignity. Marcus believed that nature never gives more than a person can carry. He wrote that pain is always limited. It has borders. It does not stretch beyond what the mind can contain. Even when it feels sharp or long, it is still a part of the natural order. And because it is natural, it can be met with calm. He reminded himself that pain is often just the body speaking in its own language, a message, not a verdict. And when the mind listens gently, without panic, the message becomes easier to bear. This doesn't mean ignoring the body's cries. It means answering with composure instead of fear. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Not every sensation must be resisted. Not every ache must be feared. Some things pass more easily when they're not chased or pushed. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is soften, to let the wave rise and let it roll over you, and trust that it will pass. Marcus also saw how fear of pain causes more suffering than the pain itself. The mind, imagining worst-case futures, can build prisons from shadows. But reality, he said, is often simpler. The pain that is here, now, is the only one that matters. And if you're living through it, breathing through it, then you are stronger than it. A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. That's what he believed about the soul, that it could take in pain, loss, discomfort, and still remain bright, still burn steady, still offer warmth, even while it endured. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You've survived so much already, more than you give yourself credit for, and you will meet what comes next with the same quiet strength. Because it isn't about escaping pain. It's about remembering that the part of you that watches the pain, that thinks clearly, acts kindly, and endures gently, that part of you is untouchable. Marcus did not want to be numb. He wanted to be courageous. He wanted to feel, but not be ruled. To endure, but not be bitter. He didn't seek out pain, but when it came, he greeted it like a stern teacher. Unwelcome, perhaps, but not an enemy. Just another part of the human path. And so, in those moments when discomfort stirred in his body or in his heart, he returned to what he knew, that the mind is free. That dignity is not found in ease, but in how we carry ourselves through discomfort. That even in hardship, there is a way to walk with grace. Tonight, if there is something within you that aches, something tired, something sore, something unsettled, let it be. Let it exist without tightening your grip. Let it speak and let it pass. Because you are not broken. You are simply human, and humans are made to feel. But even more, they are made to endure, to adapt, to soften without collapsing, to hurt without losing themselves. You have already shown this in ways you've forgotten. So as you lie here, let the fire inside you burn gently. Let it be steady. Let it light the darkness. You are not alone in your pain. You are not weak for feeling it. And you are not bound by it. You are far more than that. Drama often begins not in the world itself, but in our response to it. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He watched the bustle of Roman courts, the urgency of politics, the murmur of gossip in marble halls, and through it all he returned to stillness. If you seek tranquility, he wrote, do less, or rather, do what's essential, and do it with intention. For him, peace was not found in doing more, knowing more, reacting more. It was found in doing what mattered, and letting the rest fall away like dust from the wind. To avoid drama, one must first see it for what it is: noise. Fleeting noise that comes dressed in urgency, but rarely holds meaning. Arguments, slights, status games. Marcus saw them as distractions from the life of virtue. They are traps, he believed, not for the body, but for the soul. They pull us away from our path by offering something more tempting than peace, the illusion of importance. It is easy to get caught, easy to feel the pull of conflict, to want to win, to have the last word, to be seen as right. But Marcus gently reminds us, you always own the option of having no opinion. What a quiet, powerful truth. That we can let the storm pass without stepping into it, that we can witness the frenzy of others, and still choose calm. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. You can allow things to happen around you without letting them happen inside you. You can step back, not with coldness, but with clarity. You are not required to chase every shout, fix every misunderstanding, or respond to every invitation into chaos. Some peace is built not by winning, but by walking away. Distractions, too, can wear many masks. They promise productivity. They offer escape. They disguise themselves as responsibilities, entertainment, even purpose. But Marcus urged caution. He reminded himself daily that life is brief, and time, once lost, does not return. Every moment spent on the unessential is a moment stolen from the essential. And so he practiced discernment. Ask yourself at every moment, he said, is this necessary? The distractions may not seem harmful. They may be comfortable, familiar, but they slowly draw the soul away from what matters. They scatter the mind. They dilute intention. And soon a day passes, then a week, then a year, filled with motion, but absent of meaning. Marcus sought to live each moment fully present, undivided. That does not mean avoiding pleasure or responsibility. It means attending to life with the awareness that every breath is a choice. Every word, every thought, every action. These are the brushstrokes of the self. When distracted, we hand the brush to the world. When focused, we reclaim it. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. It's okay if your day felt chaotic. It's okay if your mind still buzzes with open loops and unresolved things. But none of them belong here now. Not in this stillness. This moment is yours. This breath is yours. No one is asking you to respond, to perform, to prove anything. You are safe to release the clutter. Marcus trained his mind to come back, again and again, to what mattered. Not just in quiet rooms, but in crowds. Not just in peace, but in crisis. Even as an emperor, surrounded by decisions and drama, he returned to simplicity. He wrote at night, not for history, but for his own soul. To remember that a clear mind is a powerful mind, that calm is not weakness, it is strength, deeply rooted. He did not seek to escape the world, he sought to live well within it. And living well, to him, meant living intentionally, with eyes open, with a heart anchored, with the courage to say no, not out of anger, but out of respect, for the brief, beautiful time we are given. You are allowed to step back, to choose silence over noise, stillness over reaction, depth over display. This is not avoidance. It is wisdom. It is a gentle refusal to let your life be shaped by what pulls rather than what calls. And so tonight, if there are dramas echoing in your mind, if distractions tug at your attention, let them go. Not by force, just by noticing, watching them drift past like clouds without needing to follow. Return to what's simple, what's real, the steady rhythm of your breath, the quiet weight of your body resting, the silent presence of your being. These are not distractions. They are the way back to yourself. Your circumstances may shift like the wind, but who you are, deeply, quietly, does not have to move with them. Marcus Aurelius believed that a person's character is the only true possession they carry. He ruled an empire, yet wrote not about palaces or politics, but about virtue, clarity, and inner strength. For him, what mattered was not what happened around you, but how you responded from within. A storm may rise, the world may become uncertain, but character, like the roots of a great tree, holds fast. Marcus wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." To him, the essence of a person was never defined by their luck, their fortune, or the praise of others. It was defined by their consistency, by the habits they chose when no one else was watching, to suffer loss and remain kind, to be wronged and stay honest, to meet disappointment with patience. These are not easy things, but they are the quiet triumphs of the soul. They do not make headlines, they do not attract applause, but they build something lasting, something no circumstance can take away. So often, we think our identity is made by achievement, or shaped by what happens to us. But Marcus saw through this illusion. What happens is never fully in our control. How we choose to be always is. This is why he returned, again and again, to the practice of virtue. To do what is just, what is fair, what is aligned with reason, not because it leads to reward, but because it is right. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. You are not defined by how smoothly your day went, not by the mistakes you made, or the praise you didn't receive. You are shaped by how you chose to move through it all, by the moments when you could have chosen bitterness, but chose steadiness instead. Even in suffering, there is space for dignity. Marcus faced illness, betrayal, and grief, yet he wrote with a steady hand. He did not deny hardship. He simply refused to let hardship define him. It's not what happens to you, he reminded himself, but how you react to it that matters. In this, he found peace, not in avoiding pain, but in preserving his own clarity through it. A noble character does not require perfect conditions. In fact, it is often revealed in the worst of them. When things are taken away, when the path becomes uncertain, when you feel tired or unseen, these are the moments that quietly test what you truly value. And so, the goal is not to control every outcome. The goal is to be someone you trust, even when the world turns strange. Someone whose actions are guided by inner principle, not outer noise. Someone whose self-respect is built not on success, but on integrity. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. You've carried enough today. Let yourself remember that you are not your schedule, not your title, not your worries or your wounds. You are the calm center behind it all, the place where decisions are made not from fear, but from quiet resolve. Character is not grand. It's not made of speeches or gestures. It's often invisible, like a steady breath in a moment of anger, or a silent act of kindness when no one's looking. And it's in those moments that you are closest to yourself. Not the self shaped by others, but the one that has always known how to live with honesty, patience, and care. Marcus taught that we should return to this self often, that we should strip away what is temporary and hold close what is lasting. And the most lasting thing, he believed, was virtue. Not perfection, but effort. The choice, again and again, to be just, to be calm, to be kind, not because the world always deserves it, but because your peace does. When you wake tomorrow, the world may not be different, but you can be rooted. You can meet it with grace. You can carry yourself like someone who knows they've already won the only prize that matters, the quiet, enduring strength of a good character. A full life doesn't always need to be a full one. To Marcus Aurelius, richness came not from what was owned, but from what could be lived without. The Stoic emperor saw how the world tempts people with more comfort, more status, more pleasure, and yet how little of it truly brought peace. What mattered, he believed, was to be content with what was already within reach. That was enough. He wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking, not in abundance, but in clarity, not in collecting, but in letting go." He found comfort in simplicity, not as an act of denial, but as a return to what is most natural. To live with little is not to live in poverty. It is to live in freedom, unburdened by the chase for things that always stay just out of reach. There is a quiet kind of joy in simplicity, a meal that nourishes, not dazzles, a room that holds warmth, not distraction, a day that is not rushed, but present. These are not empty things, they are whole, and they are enough. Marcus saw that much of what disturbs us comes from wanting more, wanting what others have, what the future might bring, what the past didn't give, and in that wanting we lose what we already hold. To be content with little is not to lower your standards, it is to raise your awareness, to see clearly what actually supports your peace. A cluttered life, filled with noise and striving, often masks the simple truths, that we need less than we think, and that happiness grows best in quiet soil. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. You don't need to keep reaching, chasing, hoping that something more will fix what already aches. The stillness you long for isn't found in having, it's found in releasing. Marcus believed that nature itself lives in balance. The tree does not hoard sunlight. The river does not collect water for later. Each thing takes only what it needs and offers the rest back to the whole. When people align with that same pattern, when they ask, "What do I truly need to live well?" they often find the answer is far less than they imagined. Enough food to nourish, enough shelter to rest, enough companionship to feel seen, enough purpose to rise each morning with intention. These are the real riches. And the greatest wealth, he thought, was a calm mind, a heart not tangled in wants or envy or longing, a life that finds sweetness in the present moment. He wrote not as someone removed from the world, but as an emperor who had everything, and still felt the pull toward a simpler life. That tension shaped many of his reflections, the reminder that real peace comes not from outside arrangements, but from inner posture. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Imagine a life where enough is truly enough, where you don't carry the weight of endless improvement or the pressure to compete, where joy comes not from novelty, but from noticing how the light moves across the wall, how a warm drink softens the edge of a thought, how a single conversation can change the temperature of the day. These are small things, but they are not minor. In simplicity, there is room to breathe, to return to what matters, to stop needing everything to go your way, and instead find peace in the way things are. When we stop expecting life to constantly excite us, we begin to notice its quieter offerings, steadiness, clarity, and the gentle hum of being alive. Marcus saw that so much of life's struggle is borrowed. We build castles of expectation, only to grow tired defending them. But when we strip life down to what is essential, we may find that the walls we built were never needed. That contentment was waiting quietly in the spaces we had forgotten. A person who is content with little is not poor. They are strong. They are not distracted by glitter, nor pulled by every desire. They move slowly, with intention. They know themselves and what truly sustains them. And in that knowing, there is power. To be content with little is not to withdraw from life, but to see it more clearly. To see that joy is not something to be bought or built, but something to be noticed, felt, and lived. One breath at a time, one gentle moment after another. Nature does not act with malice. It does not plot, punish, or seek revenge. It simply moves in rhythms that have always been. The rising of the sun, the falling of the leaf, the breaking of the wave. These are not signs of cruelty or kindness. They are signs of order To Marcus Aurelius, this order was sacred, not because it always comforted, but because it always made sense, even when human minds struggled to understand it. He wrote, "Whatever happens to you has been waiting to happen since the beginning of time. The twining strands of fate wove both your being and the event." And from that vision he drew a quiet strength. To him, the universe was not a chaos of luck and accident. It was a whole. And each thing that happened within it, even pain or loss, had its place. It belonged. Nature creates storms, yes, but also the calm that follows. It allows decay, but in that decay, seeds take root. Nothing in nature is wasted, and nothing is truly wrong. Even what feels harsh or unjust to the human heart is part of a system that is, at its core, neutral and balanced. Nature does not act against us, it simply continues. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Sometimes the most peaceful realization is this, that not everything is personal. The wind doesn't blow to test your strength. The rain doesn't fall to dampen your spirit. Events unfold, as they always have, and people, fragile and hopeful, interpret them through the lens of fear or hope or judgment. But nature itself carries no such emotions. It offers no blame, no reward. It simply is. And in that isness, Marcus saw something comforting. Because if nature does not hate, then the suffering it allows is not a curse. It is not punishment. It is part of a pattern. And when we resist that pattern, when we fight the seasons of our own life, we create more pain than the events themselves ever could. To live in harmony with nature, he believed, was to accept its ways without bitterness. To understand that death, change, struggle, they are not signs of failure. They are the currents of a larger sea. And like the tides, they move us, shape us, carry us toward places we could not reach by stillness alone. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Imagine the peace of accepting what comes not as an enemy, but as a companion. Of seeing even the unwelcome things, delays, endings, heartbreak, not as intrusions, but as visitors with purpose. This does not mean pretending everything feels good. It means allowing everything to be part of good, part of something larger than your moment. Marcus often reminded himself that everything that happens is natural, and what is natural cannot be evil. If a tree drops its fruit too early, the earth still knows what to do with it. If a branch breaks, light finds its way through the opening. Every fault, every fall is absorbed into the whole. So too with us. When we stumble, when we grieve, when we feel shaken by what life delivers, we are not breaking nature, we are expressing it. Even the feelings we resist are natural. The fear, the doubt, the longing. But when we stop labeling them as wrong, they lose their sharpness. They soften, like waves that have reached the shore. Nature teaches in silence. It doesn't explain itself. It does not rush. It unfolds, patiently, without apology. And if we can learn to move like it, gently, persistently, without resistance, we may suffer less. We may even find beauty in the flow of things we once feared. Marcus did not believe that nature had a human face. It did not judge, nor did it need forgiveness. It simply lived. And within that vast living system, every person had a role to play. Not a grand role necessarily, but a place, a moment, a small movement that contributed to the whole. To see life this way is to loosen the grip of complaint, to stop asking, why me, and start whispering, of course this too. It's not resignation, it's clarity. The clarity that comes from understanding that what it must be, because it is. And that understanding brings peace. So when things are hard, or strange, or unfair, perhaps there is still room to trust, not in the outcome, but in the pattern, in the rhythm that pulses beneath it all, the rhythm that turns night into morning and endings into beginnings, the rhythm that says, even this, even now, belongs. Applause fades. Even the loudest cheers eventually become echoes, then silence. The crowd moves on. The world forgets. To Marcus Aurelius, the pursuit of recognition was a fragile and fleeting aim, one that placed your peace in the hands of others. And hands, he knew, are quick to open and let go. He wrote, "Ambition means tying your well-being to what other people say or do. Sanity means tying it to your own actions." For him, real fulfillment didn't come from being praised. It came from living in a way that deserved no shame, that brought no regrets, that felt right, even if no one else ever noticed. To live for applause is to stand on unsteady ground. Today, you may be lifted up. Tomorrow, you may be cast down. Praise can feel sweet, yes, but it is sweet like sugar, not like nourishment. It satisfies the ego, not the soul. The moment you start relying on it, your peace becomes conditional. You smile only if others approve. You rest only if others agree. Marcus urged instead a quieter path. He believed that the most serene life was one lived inwardly, a life guided not by the opinions of the many, but by the compass of your own reason. He called this the inner citadel, a kind of sacred space inside you, untouched by gossip, flattery, or insult. A place no one else could enter, and no one else could control. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. When you let go of needing to impress, something surprising happens. You begin to feel lighter, quieter, more at ease in your own skin. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. You stop wondering what they're thinking. You stop chasing approval like a prize. Instead, you begin to ask simpler, softer questions. Did I act with integrity today? Was I kind, even when it wasn't easy? Did I stay true to my values, or did I bend them to be liked? These questions don't lead to applause, but they lead to peace. And peace, Marcus believed, is a far greater treasure. The Stoics saw the crowd for what it was, changeable, distracted, often mistaken. They didn't hate it, but they didn't trust it either. They didn't see public recognition as evil, but they knew it was hollow, a shadow, a wind that cannot be held. So they turned inward, not in selfishness, but in clarity, to examine your thoughts, to purify your intentions, to be your own judge, and to seek approval from the only person who walks with you in every moment, yourself. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. Imagine the quiet relief of no longer needing to be seen, of doing what is good because it is good, not because it earns applause. Imagine how still the mind becomes when it no longer performs but simply acts, how restful the heart feels when it no longer waits to be noticed. This is not a call to isolation. Marcus lived among people, governed an empire, made decisions with real consequence. But even in that storm, he protected his inner stillness. He wrote his meditations not for others, but for himself. A reminder, again and again, that it is better to be content and unseen than admired and hollow. He knew that true self-respect could not be borrowed from the crowd. It had to be earned, privately, in the way you show up to each moment, how you respond to frustration, how you care when no one is watching, how you speak to others and to yourself when the spotlight is gone. Praise may come, it may not, but peace is always within reach. And peace does not ask for applause. It asks for honesty, simplicity, stillness, a gentle alignment between what you believe and how you live. When you let go of needing recognition, you make room for joy that is not dependent, for a calm that is not waiting, for a dignity that grows quietly, like a tree in the forest, strong whether noticed or not. Marcus knew, the best life is not the one with the most attention. It is the one with the most alignment. When what you value matches how you act, when you live not for applause, but for truth. And in that truth, you rest. Not loudly, not publicly, but deeply. To Marcus Aurelius, the idea of death wasn't something to fear. It was something to understand, something to sit with, something to practice. Not in a grim or morbid way, but in the gentle sense of placing life into perspective. He often reminded himself, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. When you live as if you've already died, something softens in you. You stop rushing. You stop needing. You stop performing. You stop holding onto slights and comparisons and anxieties that once seemed so sharp. They fall away, like dust brushed gently from your shoulders. Because when death is no longer some distant visitor, but a quiet presence you've already welcomed, what matters changes. You look at a cloudy sky and feel content, just to have eyes to see it. You hear someone's voice and feel thankful that you can hear at all. Even when pain or inconvenience shows up, you meet them with a kind of patience you didn't know you had. You're already past the finish line. Everything now is a gift you didn't expect. Marcus didn't mean this as a denial of life, quite the opposite. He meant to fully awaken the part of us that forgets how fragile it all is, to remind us that we are not guaranteed another morning, not another evening, not even the rest of this hour. And that truth, when faced gently, can lead to a profound kind of peace. A kind of peace that says, since I've already let go, everything I hold now is light. You don't need to hold so tightly anymore. Living as if you've already died means letting go of resentment faster. You no longer have time to carry old injuries, to replay harsh words, to feed old arguments. They become like echoes fading behind you. You see the futility in dragging them forward, and so you don't. You breathe, and that breath alone is enough. It means you stop waiting. You don't wait for someone to change, or for perfect conditions to begin living. You don't wait to be understood or applauded. You don't wait for the right mood to be kind. If you've already died, then this moment, this very one, is the return, the bonus, the quiet miracle. Marcus saw clearly that we are not just moving toward death. We are already dying, moment by moment, breath by breath. But rather than fear it, he welcomed it as a sharpening lens, one that makes everything clearer, simpler, more meaningful. If the clock is always ticking, then how we choose to spend each second is a sacred act. Let the noise of the world fade for a while. When you live from this place, you are no longer fooled by pride or titles or busy schedules. The appearance of importance loses its grip. You don't need to achieve immortality. You just need to live fully, honestly and kindly, right now. Even if no one ever remembers you, even if the page turns and your name vanishes. What matters is how you showed up, not how long you stayed. In his writing, Marcus often pictured death not as an end, but as a return, like a drop of water returning to the sea. Nature doesn't rage against its cycles. It turns and changes and lets go. So must we. And once we accept that, deeply and quietly, our fear begins to fade. In its place, there is room for grace. The ordinary becomes sacred. Folding a blanket, pouring a cup of water, sitting quietly with someone. These are no longer steps toward some grand goal. They are the goal. Because if this were your final hour, wouldn't you want it to be gentle? Wouldn't you want to meet it with calm eyes and a soft heart? When we live as if we've already died, we forgive more easily. We speak more carefully. We smile more often and with less effort. Our priorities untangle themselves. We no longer need to prove. We only need to be. And in that simple being, we find something close to peace. Marcus understood that death is not cruel. It is impartial, natural, and unavoidable. And so he chose not to fight it, but to fold it into his philosophy, to let it shape the way he treated each day, each person, each fleeting moment of breath and thought and feeling. In doing so, he wasn't avoiding death, he was deepening life. And maybe that is the gift we overlook, that by imagining it all already gone, we finally wake up. That in accepting our ending, we begin again, softer, calmer, truer than before, as if returning from the edge, carrying only what we truly need. Nothing more, nothing heavy. That's what it means, perhaps, to live as if you've already died, to walk the world not with fear, but with gratitude, not with grasping, but with grace. To be unburdened by the illusion that anything lasts, and in that freedom, to love more freely, breathe more slowly, and rest more deeply.